You know, I realized that for like the first 30 minutes, I talked 30 seconds, maybe not 30 minutes. I talked to myself. Is anybody out there? Somebody's out there. If you're out there, tell me where you're from. Hey, Annette, Nebraska. All right, Judy. How are you? Lara, Zeke. Hey, guys, this is Jim with Crawfordology, where I just realized, by the way, that I talked to myself for like the first 30 seconds, maybe the first 45 seconds while that whole theme song's playing. And it used to be you guys would all jump in the room really fast and start kind of texting. It hasn't been that way lately. I don't know. You guys trying to make me feel crazy, or is it? We'll blame it on Facebook. It's Facebook and it's all that other stuff. Oh, Cynthia, you're here. Thankfully, my wife showed up. So at least that way, if I talk for a long time, it wouldn't be too crazy, right? Hey, if you haven't done it already, make sure that you, let me get my hand in, that you like and subscribe. And by the way, if you'll just take for a second and just share this thing, we're going to talk about some of the crazy things going on. And no guest today. So we're just going to talk about some of the crazy things that are going on in the world called the U.S. We're not going out of the country for this. We don't have to. We don't have to. We got mandates. We got all sorts of things that are happening. And we want to talk about that. And in a second, I'm going to go to Dear Leader and let you see, if you didn't see it already, we're going to see some footage of what happened tonight. But before we do that, if you haven't been here, make sure you go to American One, because as soon as I say the C word, I'm afraid they'll turn me off. They'll turn me off again. They'll roll my distribution down to 1. It'll be me. I'll be able to see it. I don't even think my wife will be able to see it in a different part of the house. So if you will, just make sure you go to American One. Check us out there. The more we see you there, the better it is for us. We may go back later to doing some shows that happen where we do part of the show here and then part of the show back over on the other place. So we're gonna jump on that. All right. So listen, without further ado, I want to take you to part of the discussion that happened today. And this is from PBS NewsHour, so it's all royalty free. We're allowed to watch it. But I want you to just watch a couple of seconds here with Judy, where she actually does the intro, and then she's going to talk about, we're going to hear a little bit from Biden. Well, maybe we're not going to hear a little bit from Biden. Hang on. I'm not hearing Biden. Are you hearing Biden? No, I am not hearing Biden. Let's... to
be done. The recommendations are there in the calls for justice and the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls report. And yet we...
Now, for some reason, it pops up. Have no understanding why that happened. Let's... allow me to take you back. Somehow we ended up on a Canadian election, which I'm pretty sure you guys don't care about.
It affects private employers with more than 100 workers, and it mandates that federal employees and contractors get shots with no testing option. The president had sharp words for the unvaccinated.
We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient.
Wait a minute. They're free? How do we get these vaccinations free? Don't American taxpayers still have to pay for these? I mean, I'm just curious, but I'm not going to do this much, but it just seems a little like maybe that's not exactly true. Nothing is free. Everything costs something.
The vaccine is FDA approval.
Okay, maybe I am going to jump back and forth, but the vaccine is FDA approval. Pretty sure he meant approved, and I'm being a curmudgeon here about this. But here's the thing. It was approved very quickly. Okay, but let's assume that the vaccine's safe. I believe it is. And I'll be honest, I'm vaccinated, right?
Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
Okay, you lost me there, Joe. I was actually pretty good with even the other stuff. But what right do you have to be patient or impatient with me if I'm going to choose to get a vaccine or not? Hey, what happened to like my body, my choice? Did that go out the window because this is no longer a platform here for the political divide? And maybe it is more of a platform for the divide, and maybe I hope I'm not making it that. I just don't like the idea that the government thinks that it's right for them to be able to step in and tell you, hey, you have to do this. Like I said, I've already got it. I've had the vaccine. I talked to a guy today who's had the vaccine. He's had COVID twice after the vaccine. 2 times. He has it right now. So, you know, it's not a silver bullet. We don't know what that is, but just interesting. And how do you feel? So I want to play this on out for a second.
And your refusal has cost all of us. So please do the right thing.
We'll talk with the president's top infectious disease advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, later in the program. Separately today, the Los Angeles School Board considered...
Hang on, Judy. Thanks. So really quickly, what I'd almost like us to do is just real quick in the comments, I just want you to say thumbs up, I don't think you can do a thumbs down. How about thumbs up if you like Fauci? And what word do we want to put in the comments if you don't like Fauci? How about socialist? All right, just put in socialist. If you don't believe Fauci, put in thumbs up if you like Fauci and you think all the things that he's done are right and honest. So I'm going to watch the comments as we go along here. But look, here's a bigger point. And this is a problem because what we're really there is a thumbs down. Hey, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we can just do thumbs down. We don't have to say socialist. We can just do thumbs down. I like it. Okay, but you can say socialist. I say, oh, socialist pig. Thank you. Socialist liar. Okay. All right. We got a lot of stuff going. I've started something bad. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get thrown off Facebook again for this. Hey, but here's really the crux of that. And I want to talk about this for a minute because I think it really is important for us to think about what gives government rights. You know, we've talked about this before on the show. People are the source of all power of government. We decide. We get to decide. We get to say what's right, what's wrong. What are we willing? I'm still waiting for that first thumbs up. I haven't seen it yet. We get to say what is good, what powers we want to rest within government, and what things we want to do for ourselves. And I want to go back. You know, we've talked about administrative law. Administrative law is basically government overreaching the powers that we've given them to decide they're going to do something else. And I'm going to read something for you today. And I don't normally read. Well, I do read. I can read. I'll prove it in a minute. But it's the idea that for the first 125 years of our country, senators were elected by the state legislatures. Now, you can go, you don't have to believe me for this. You can go check out the National Archives. You can see how this works. It's all very true. I would not tease you about this. Oh, I see 2 thumbs up. Oh, socialist definitely is one of the thumbs up. And I'm not going to call you out by name, but thanks. Hey, thanks for being honest. You are one. You know those things on Facebook or on the web where they show like everything's an 8 and then they'll have like a 9 and they'll be like, you're a genius if you can pick out the 9 in less than 30 seconds. I see a couple people who are like that 9 and they've popped a thumbs up here. Maybe just for effect because somebody has Trump. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, so anyway, so as we think about how the state legislatures used to vote for senators, and this was so the will of the states would be represented in government, that you couldn't run over the state with the federal government. But about 125 years after the ratification of the Constitution, we came to this time where, believe it or not, these big democratic political machines in certain parts of the country would wrestle back and forth and would fight amongst themselves to see who's going to be appointed, who's going to be the next senator, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. And they created a lot of really difficult circumstances that that left in a deadlock. And at one point, I'm going to share this with you in just a second. Let me see if I can do it. Here's a comic depiction from Clifford Berryman, who in probably, what year is this? 1911. Okay, so you see Colorado here, deadlocked. You see Montana wrestling around. You see New York fighting back and forth. What one is this? Iowa. Okay, so what was going on there is these states had fought and sometimes would leave their Senate seats vacant for months, sometimes for years, these things. And it was basically party differences, machine politics that would just grind it out, and people would struggle. So somebody got the great idea of saying, I know what we need to do. We need to have another amendment to the Constitution. And they came out with the 17th Amendment, which was the direct election of U.S. senators. So very problematic, because what did that do? Now you had the House of Representatives and the Senate being controlled by direct election from the people, which means you can sway people sometimes a lot easier than you can sway a deliberative body. And if you don't believe that, if you ever try to go in your town and get something passed for zoning, or you try to go to a commission to get them to approve something, there are lots of people who go in situations like that and they build out a number of... Are you guys having trouble with the video playing? I'm going to just keep watching the comments, but I'm going to keep talking. So the 17th Amendment creates the direct election of U.S. senators, takes power from the states. And why is that really important? Well, it's also around 1925 that we start to see things like administrative law show up. And why is administrative law important? Well, because it's the overreach. And this is what I want to read you from Marvin Rosenberry. It was written in 1929. He's the acting Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. And he's gotten, this is just a couple of paragraphs here. He says, in the government of this Commonwealth, the legislative department shall never exercise the executive and judicial powers, or either of them. The executive shall never exercise the legislative and judicial powers, or either of them. The judicial shall never exercise the legislative and executive powers. Now, what he's talking about here is the Constitution of Massachusetts. And he's saying that if you're the executive body, you make the laws, right? Make the laws. Or I'm sorry, you don't make the laws. You enforce the laws. If you're the judicial, you uphold the laws, right? You execute the laws if you're the executive. If you're the judicial, you uphold and enforce the laws. If you are the legislative body, you write the law. So why is this really important? Because when suddenly we see ourselves filled up with all sorts of administrative judges who just take power and they say things, and presidential orders are really a form of that overreach. So what they said in Massachusetts is, if you're the executive, you'll never be the judicial, so you can never write law. But here we have, and this happened before, by the way, this has happened under every president in the last probably 125 years, that they have, that at least the last 100 years, they felt the ability to overreach from beyond their role to be the executive, to say, well, I'm also going to write some law, and I'm going to decide what I want to enforce and what I don't, because I'm going to tell the Attorney General, hey, don't do that, do this. And if you don't enforce it, then it never may make it to the judicial. So these executive rules become really problematic in how the government is able now to make decisions for your life, for our lives, and to do that without any representation, right? You could change 50 congressmen, you could change 25 senators. These executive, administrative judges, administrative bureaucrats will remain, and they will still be able to come and push out and change things in your life, like it or not. It's important for us to push back against this. Now, I just want to give you a couple of things about unchecked growth to federal power, and especially where they get in. And you see this happening now. You know, the Biden administration has decided to sue Texas because of this abortion rights bill, or because of this anti-abortion bill, this pro-life bill. Let's call it what it really is. You also have people who, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate that. I love seeing you guys here. By the way, you know I used to comment a lot, but I've got a couple things on my mind, and then I'm going to come back and kind of catch up on the questions and see what's going on there. I see James says we got the China flu sniffing dogs at the airport. Yeah, you know, it's probably going to happen. So administrative law, overreach in the federal government, we end up getting things like, hey, you know what? We're going to have transgender bathrooms. We don't care if you want them or not. You're going to have them because someone in Washington in a bureaucrat's role, someone who's a political appointee wants you to have them. We're going to dictate school curriculum to be CRT. We want critical race theory taught because that's what we believe to be true. And because we believe it and we think everybody should know that, we're pushing it on you too, right? That's all administrative law. Prohibition of mining, burning coal, regulating ditches, you know, and where I live in Eastern Virginia, they can actually come to your property, and if they identify certain plants on your property, the Army Corps of Engineers will say, hey, you know what that is? That's a wetland. That's a wetland. You can't, don't plow those fields. Don't build your house there. You can't build a building there. So they create essentially a wasteland of swampy tidal stuff. And sometimes that happens simply because bad drainage. Some other work has happened. I'll tell you, in a place near me, there were some ditches that were cut by the city years ago. Well, what did they do with the spoils? They just threw them up on the bank. They didn't really worry about leveling them out. So they sort of inadvertently created some standing water. Well, we're in a place where we have lots of migratory birds. The birds go in the woods, they eat, they roost, they find places to rest. And when they do that, they have seeds. Deer come through there, they eat, forage in one place, and then they come to another place and they do what nature calls them to do, and they drop that manure with seeds and it grows. So now suddenly you have, hey, this really wasn't a wetland, but now we've got some water there, so conditions are right. These seeds drop from these water-loving plants, and ta-da, Corps of Engineers, who's watching from satellites, and they're mapping land, they're constantly kind of conserving and paying attention to this. They come and knock on your door and say, hey, Mr. Jim, don't know if you know it, but your backyard, wetland, wetland. We're going to need that to be, you can't even go in it. We don't want you in there. We don't want you riding the mower through it. So I'm exaggerating for my case, but I have heard of many cases where this happens. And what happens? Who wants to go work for the Corps of Engineers and do conservation and things like that? It's people who are really kind of sycophants when it comes. And I'm not saying everybody. My dad worked for the Corps of Engineers. I'm not saying that everybody there is bad, but people who believe this idea and they sort of condition themselves. And they grow up in this and they go, well, hey, that's what the government's supposed to do. I'm supposed to go in there and make sure I take care of these people who can't think for themselves, like we just heard the president say. You know, we're about fed up with you people who aren't doing what we want you to do. So now the government, through its administrative law, through presidential overreach, they want to push out these ideas and enforce them on on people who don't agree with them. The whole idea that led to American greatness was the idea that you could have law, you could have property, you could have individual property rights. There was no lord, right? There was one of the reasons people would leave famine in Ireland or bad conditions in England and risk it. I mean, have you ever seen the boats these guys came across on? One of these days I'm going to podcast from Jamestown, and I'm going to try to take you guys on one of these boats. I mean, these boats were not, look, it's not like not even like a 50-foot yacht. It's like a little wooden boat, like, hey, jump in, bring all your friends. Hope we can load enough stuff. And you're going across the Atlantic without modern navigation. You got pilots who are reading the stars. They had to risk a lot to come here. And the reason they were willing to do that was when we come to America, we can be free. We can own things. We can have protections that we couldn't have before. And even if we don't own things, because, the first settlers, of course, and I'm talking, pre-revolution, we're still coming under the crown. But after the crown was gone, these folks were like, ha, America is the land of opportunity. I can go there. I can raise myself up. I can do something. I can own things. I can become competent at something. And even if not, I'm just going to go forage a life out in the woods, and I'm going to figure it out. So these people were not soft. They were not the type who would let the president say, hey, you need to get a shot because I said so. Okay, now, again, I'm not anti-vaccine. I have the vaccine. I did it because really and truly, I struggled with this a little bit, but I did it. And I feel mostly okay, except for when I'm talking to myself, which seems to be a lot of the time, right? So I do this a lot of the time. Okay, administrative law moves on, and we get to this idea that we have administrative law. And what does that grow, right? When somebody becomes powerful and they control something, what do they want? They want more power. They want more control. And that's, I just want to draw this difference because this becomes a basic tenet of socialism. Central planning is the deal. I will tell you how much food you need. I will tell you what you're going to do. I will tell you how your kids are going to go to school, what they're going to learn, what they're going to talk about. What religion I want you to study is the religion of government and the religion of service to the government, right? The funny thing about this is you can notice that it usually happens, and we saw this in the pandemic with Nancy Pelosi going in California. Hey, I've canceled everything. Everybody's locked down in California. Gavin Newsom supposedly locked down. If we have any Californians here, speak up. I want to know if you voted on the referendum. But the idea is that you have, hey, John, I know you're not. You have people who are then locked in California. Meanwhile, Gavin's going to the French Laundry. He's having dinner with his friends. No social distancing, no mask wearing. You have Nancy's, remember, going to the hair salon. That poor girl who was the hair salon who had the cameras and shared that footage. She's out of business now, right? So do socialists, do they really care about fairness? Now, that's one of their central tenets on the front end. Hey, we care about fairness. We want to make sure everybody gets what's due, that it's fair, until it's not. Well, hey, man, you know the deal. That's not good for me. Why do I have to, I'm healthy. I don't think I should have to do that. Let me tell you and your family what to do. You don't tell me what to do. Okay? So this central planning idea then goes beyond even just the idea that there's a pandemic or something like that's going on. And it moves into, what else can I make you do? I think I'd like to have a new development. We're going to have the city's going to take over the land down by the water because we want that. We're going to take that. Hey, Kurt, how are you, man? There are very few reasons I can ever think of like eminent domain type activities happening with a with a city. But it's always in the light. You know, we had it happen here in the eastern part of Virginia, where the city took over an area because they thought it was going to be great for business development. And they moved people out of their homes. They moved people out of their businesses there. They took it over. They put in, let's see. Let me think about what they put in. They've put in a whole bunch of things. But one of the tenants, one of the anchor tenants was Kmart. Anybody still shopping at Kmart? Anybody even still know where a Kmart? Is there even a Kmart still around? Most of them that I know are gone. But it's this sort of thinking that I suddenly, as a city bureaucrat, have the power to make decisions for you that are better. I can choose, and this is a word they like to use, highest and best use. Hey, highest and best use of that land is not your home, your farm, your business. It would actually be much better if it happened to fit within my plan, the plan that me and my bureaucrat friends created for your city, and we're going to take your place. Folks, it's all about control. All of this is about control. If it's go get the vaccine, if it's do whatever other thing we want you to do, stay at home. Don't use water. Don't wash your car. Do this. Do that. Hey, stop driving. Turn the lights down. Move into a smaller house. Don't burn as much energy. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're shutting down our pipelines. I said it earlier. We're saying you can't have coal. You can't burn coal. Coal bad. China is quickly. I think China's the largest coal producer now. Is that right? They are opening brand new power plants that burn. Guess what? It must be green happy thoughts from AOC. No, I think they're burning coal over there. They're going to burn coal to power the plants that are making the things that you are buying. The women, I heard that most of our Olympic costumes, uniforms, I should say, were made in China. Folks, that's a problem. That's a problem. And if we are watching ourselves lose our manufacturing capability, all at the behest of the folks who want central planning and control, I would ask you to do one thing. Read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, right? There are the makers and the takers. The takers are the people who want power. They want control. The makers are the people who are busy doing stuff. They're about things, right? If it were 200 years ago, the makers would be out there chopping down the woods. We're the Davy Crockett's, the Daniel Boones, the Simon Kentons. We're going out. We're about things. The takers are the folks who are back there going, hey, now that there's nobody watching, you should make me, Jim Dandy, your governor. I should be in charge of your decisions. I should be in charge of what you want to do. Folks, we've got to put this, to the test. We've got another election coming up in November here in Virginia. We've got elections in other places. We need 1 or 2 seats. We need 1 seat in the Senate to put an end to much of this. We need 5 seats, I think, in the House. Not as hard a lift as you think, but we've got to get out there and we've got to be about it, and not to just lay down and allow these things to go unchecked. The idea that we would have a president who believes, one, that he was voted in with some sort of mandate. Now, again, trying to stay on Facebook and YouTube. I'm not gonna challenge the election again. I'm just gonna say, let your common sense be your guide. Is this an exciting guy? So let me go to the questions. Let me go to the comments. I want to see what you guys are talking about, and let me know. What's the number one thing right now that the Biden administration has done that has just really chafed you, really has you to the point of, hey, I can't take it. Now, this morning, John Graham says he's going to make his own mind up. I think he just crossed his arms and put his feet down firm. I'm sure about that. John, I don't blame you. And I'm totally with you doing I'm that way. Somebody told me I'm a contrarian. I think I just like to be able to make decisions for myself. I don't like people to tell me this is what you have to do to be a good citizen. This is what you have to do to be a good human, because I'm the only person who knows how to be a good person and to tell you to be a good person. So a couple of comments are coming in. So Susanna says, mandate on the jab, she'll lose her job. Joan Sullivan says, Afghanistan. Cindy says, everything they do. Open the borders to illegals, says Carol. You know, Afghanistan gets 2 votes. Look, we're going to do on Saturday, if you missed Perry Blackburn, I think we're going to have a couple of guys from 5th Special Forces Group on Saturday, and we're going to talk about those first guys in Afghanistan. And we didn't talk about this last time because we're really talking about the pullout in Afghanistan, how to save people. And if you go to American One, there's a place where you can contribute to help the folks who are coming out of Afghanistan. But we're going to talk about, you know, that same spirit that the pioneers had, being with our folks who went into Afghanistan on horseback, first time in a long time. And they, you know, can you imagine being on the other side of the world and suddenly I'm going in on horseback to meet the Mujahideen and to figure out how to interact with them, work with them, and hopefully defeat the Taliban when there's only a handful of you in country. Hey, don't worry, we're here. We came to win. That's what Americans like. Americans like the winning spirit that comes with the American fighting force, the idea that we will walk through, you know, flame and burning embers to make a point, if it's to protect our people, American freedom, the ideas of liberty, or somebody who's being mistreated, somebody who's really being torn down by a strong man. So it's very difficult to sit here and watch the administration take their version of the high road, you know, I'll tell you what to do, as they just allow Afghanistan to collapse and just go in utter chaos. And now they're talking about, hey, we've got to find a way to do this. Now, Susan Watts says, hey, only one thing? Can I only give one bad thing that I don't like about the administration? So give more than one if you like. Give more than one that you like. Jillian says, Biden truly thinks he's a king. You know, I have to say, when I watch these folks, it does make me a little bit crazy. It does make me crazy. I can't understand how. Hey, Judy, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Judy and her daughter have been with us for a long time, and they usually will come on early. Judy said she just got notice that we were on. And I always love that, you know, the first thing they're doing is, hi, Mom. You know, just kind of cool. So hi, Judy. Wendy got the jab, but now she has second thoughts. Yeah, you know, look, I get it. I totally get it. And I can understand how everybody's upset. But folks, the silver lining for us is we are able and willing to push on, to be outspoken, to talk about things in a reasonable way, not to allow our families, our children, to just roll up in this. We've got to be able to push through in a way that even when our kids go to school and they're being indoctrinated and they come back with, but Mom, you know, you have to do this and you get, you know, whatever it is they're trying to make you do because they want to show you that they can do that. We've got to be strong enough to create the arguments to come back and say, well, wait, you know, what about my personal liberty? I really am amazed in this particular case that they came out with the jab and they're forcing this while they say, you know, on abortion rights, hey, you can't tell me what to do with my body. It's my body. You can't, the government doesn't have any rights there. What about personal rights? So I have to think, as Dennis Prager thinks, that there is not just, they're Republicans and Democrats. And for years, Republicans and Democrats have found a way to coexist. But then there's this liberal left, the liberals that are so far out of touch, or they are being purely influenced by our enemies to help drive wedges between us, right? You know, if you think about it, united we stand, divided we fall. And the more they can have us infighting, the more they can have us doing things like this, the more readily we start to pull things apart even more and more. So John Graham says his brain to mouth filter is broken. No, you're all right, John. You're all right. You're all good. So we can't, as Wendy says, we can't live in fear. We don't want to let these things go. We want to push on. We want to fight. We've got to push back. You've got to talk to your kids, your grandkids, your family members. If you have some of these family members that are just so brainwashed, they're so into YouTube, they're so into watching things that are on TV because there's so many things to watch on TV. We were talking earlier tonight. You've got to stay strong enough and at least be in front of them enough to have conversations about these things. You've got to be able to show them that this isn't what American greatness is about. It's not the idea that that we come up with some sort of craziness that that becomes, hey, I'll listen to the fatherland and see what they tell me I should do, right? I mean, we've seen that story before in the world as well. Central control is something that communist, socialist, any of your basic maniacal leaders do. Any totalitarian dictator tells you what to do. It's only through a republic and representation that leaders have to have a mature conversation. They have to convince you. They have to show you the merits of doing something and allow you to make these choices yourself. They don't come on the TV and say, all right, I'm about tired of you. I've seen enough. We've waited long enough. Do the right thing, man. That's not the way it's done. And I tell you, for all the guff that Trump got over being, this bravado New York guy who liked to say things like, I'm the bestest, all these things that I hear from President Biden seem worse to me, right? You better do it. You do this, you do that. I'll take you out back. Boy, I'd like to have that guy. Come on. I mean, I'm not sure some days that there just aren't some really long, difficult days physically for the president. I don't know how long he intends to stay in the job. I don't know that he was ever asked any hard questions like that during the election. But I can tell you, it doesn't really matter to me if he stays in the job or not, or who's in that job. I am a free-thinking individual, and I've been given, a brain from the Creator. I'm allowed. Ben Franklin says Corn Pop was a bad dude. Yeah, that's right. But I've been given the ability to think for myself, to rationalize, to read, to become informed, and to make decisions for myself. And if you guys will vote me dictator, I will actually make decisions for you too, if that's what you want. I mean, I'm happy. But here's a guy who really believes that he has been given this power to control all the people in America, apparently, and part of the people in Mexico or on the border. And we've got to just continue to fight this and push back hard. Silver lining is we can. We've got to stick together. We got to hit these forums. We got to go to places like this. We've also got to figure out what is the conversation that helps us bridge the gap between rational Democrats. I'm not talking about these leftist wackos. I'm not talking about AOC. I don't think you're ever talking AOC off the ledge, right? Nobody's going to get in a room with her and convince her that, hey, here's something we could do. But what we could do, Cynthia says she'd have to wear a dress and heels and pearls if I were in control of her. That's not true. Only 5 days, 6 days a week, something like that. So there's always somebody out there who thinks that they know how to think for you, how to act for you, and how to control you. We keep pushing back on these things. We find these sorts of inflection points, these terrible failures, right? Afghanistan was a ridiculous failure. We've given more weapons to our enemies than ever before in any time. And I cannot imagine that there's anybody in the Pentagon who can look with a straight face and be like, hey, high five, good job. Yet the people in the administration were doing a victory lap on what a great job they'd done about basically having the largest airlift ever. Yep. Okay. Yep. I'm the skinniest kid at fat camp, and I'm great. You know, nothing wrong with that, right? But when you have somebody who's in charge of the government and they're having colossal failure after colossal failure, we've got to expect that at some point those folks who are Democrats that are normal, they've grown up thinking, hey, Democrats are good. They care about the little guy, right? I think what they're going to find is Republicans care about the little guy. You know, they've been doing some studies, and I want you to think about this. It did used to be that Democrats were kind of the party for the laborers and the folks like that, that the wealthy class tended to be Republicans. Now they're finding there's been a shift. All these tech giants with their weird ideas out in California, no offense to California, but all these folks who come up with these great things that are just driven by ideas that really make no sense. By the way, I want to tell you, I think that there's a point you hit billionaire status and you lose your mind, right? You just lose your mind. You do strange stuff, right? Just pause for a minute. If you don't believe me, think about the billionaires that you've seen out there and look at the things they do, and just, you know, you be the judge. I'm not going to go anywhere else with that. At the end of the day, it's all going to come back to us being able to communicate with our neighbors who don't maybe think just like us, but folks who are willing to have a conversation to say, hey man, you know, this doesn't really seem like we pulled out of Afghanistan in the best way. I don't know how you feel about the government forcing us to get this vaccine. I don't know what the next thing's going to be. Last thing I want to touch on tonight, and this has had some people up in arms. You know, today, 13 Trump appointees were relieved kind of immediately. They had, I read the letter. Let me see if I can find the letter. I don't know if I have it. I had it up there for a while. This was pretty amazing. And I don't know if it's common for it to happen in this way, but I'll tell you what happened is Biden has his assistant send an email out and say, hey, on behalf of President Biden, he would like for you to resign. And if you don't resign by 6 o'clock, we're going to fire you. So this one I want to share with you because I thought it was actually pretty good. So Kellyanne Conway, and these were political appointees. Now, look, we can say all sorts of things and be honest and be critical of Biden. I went back and looked. President Trump did the same thing. He fired every Obama appointee that he could, right? And this is him doing the same thing. So let's be fair when we say that, hey, there's just dumb stuff that happens and it's politics and it shouldn't happen, but it does happen. And the president should have the power to be the executive. So if you're the executive, you're running the show, and President Biden wants to put people on the Air Force Academy board that really love the transgender idea, or really love the idea of something else that's not related to Air Force policies, but he wants it to be, as Obama did, then that's what they deal with. But here's what happens. So the president has his assistant. The president doesn't make a phone call to these people who are serving, but he says, yeah, you know what? I need these people to resign, and they need to do it by 6 p.m. or I'm going to fire them. And I don't care. I'll just fire them. So Kellyanne Conway, you may remember, big Trump supporter. She left a little bit early, but because of some family issues. Donald Trump and her husband were constantly going at it. Here's her response. Let me see before I give you her response. Just wanted to see if I could find it. Oh, well, I'm not going to wait. The letter was very simple. It was like a paragraph. Now imagine you've been serving at the high end of government. The president's appointed you, or a previous president's appointed you, and now you get the assistant. This is the assistant to the president sends this note. Hey, you got till 6 p.m. We'd like for you to resign, but if you don't resign, you're fired. Okay, Kellyanne Conway gets the letter. It says, President Biden, I'm in receipt of the letter you sent me today demanding that I resign from the Board of Visitors to the United States Air Force Academy or be terminated by 6 p.m. tonight. News reports suggest you made the same demand of other men and women who were duly appointed to service academy boards. 3 former directors of presidential personnel informed me that this request is a break from presidential norms. It certainly seems petty and political, if not personal. The result is that faithful and willing public servants will be discouraged or thwarted from service. Our service academies will risk being further politicized and polarized. Your decision is disappointing, but understandably, given the need to distract from a news cycle that has you mired in multiple self-inflicted crises and plummeting poll numbers, including a rise in new COVID cases, a dismal jobs report, inflation, record amount of drugs coming across the southern border, and of course, the chaotic and deadly withdrawal from Afghanistan that has left hundreds of Americans and thousands of Afghan allies stranded under Taliban rule. It is an honor to serve on the Board of Visitors to the United States Air Force Academy. The brave men and women in uniform represent the best of our great nation. It was also a privilege to serve a president whose actions resulted in the death of terrorists like al-Baghdadi and Qasem Soleimani, rather than a president whose actions resulted in the deaths of 13 U.S. service members. I'm not resigning, but you should. Sincerely, Kellyanne. Now, folks, if you're going to go out, there's your silver lining. Go out with your head held high and tell it like it is. And don't let these folks just push you around simply because they think they're smarter. And that's what they think. These are intellectual bullies who want to control you, your life, and everything about it. And they want you to have no say in what they do. Folks, don't forget Saturday evening, probably 7. We're going to do this call with 5th Special Forces Group's guys. I'm sure we're going to hear some great stories. We're going to hear these are the guys who actually made the contact. So hang in there. Come see us. If you haven't done it before, visit us over at ThreatWorks. That's one of the companies that we have. Hit ThreatWorks and do this. Annette, I can block Peter Jones, who's reaching out to the ladies. Peter, leave the ladies alone. I don't think they don't want your attention. All right, Peter has been blocked. I think. We'll see. He should be blocked. Now he's off the restream chats. But folks, hang in there. Yeah, Wendy. Peter, go away. All right. You guys hang in there. Keep pushing. Push ahead. Don't forget, it's your country. You are the boss. It's not them. They're nobodies. All right.